Hello, everyone. This is Searita from Burning Love Outreach, and I am here tonight with a very, very special guest. Our guest tonight was in the boxing ring of life. Yes, she was. She was in the boxing ring of life. She was being punched by alcohol. She was being punched by cocaine, and she was also being punched by binge eating. And tonight she is going to share her story with us. If you know someone who should be watching this Facebook Live tonight or Zoom video webinar, please tag them on Facebook because we don't want anyone to miss this story tonight. We are excited to have our special guest with us. And I'm also going to ask you if you would please share this video and click like. And we are ready to get started for the evening. We just want to welcome you to Burning Love Outreach Facebook Live and also Zoom webinar conversation. I am excited about this discussion tonight with our special guest, and we call her the Queen of Relapse. Yes, the Queen of Relapse. And what I love about our guests that we have had on last week and this week is the fact that they are willing to be an open book for us. They are willing to share their journey, their experiences with us, and they are not holding anything back. And we are going to hear their stories tonight and be encouraged by them and be encouraged by their transparency to their life of dependency. So I want you to know that Burning Love Outreach, we are on a mission to lift up those who are suffering from the torment of addiction. And we are here to encourage them and to give them hope, peace, and joy through a relationship with God. So our guest tonight grew up in Whitby, Ontario. She moved to Toronto about 11 years ago. She is an investor relations compliance officer, and she also works with Celebrate Recovery. Our guest loves fitness, and she uses it as part of her recovery. And she loves everything to do with faith, fitness, and recovery on social media. She's obsessed with her kitty cat, Logan. And the one thing that she said she will not give up is caffeine. So I want you to help me welcome Ashley Palmer. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us tonight and being our special guest.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited, a little nervous, but I think that this is going to be amazing. And I hope that I can share something that even if just one person takes something away, it's going to be a success. So thanks for having me.
Yes. You are so welcome. Well, you know what? We know that you endured a lot of blows in life. As I said, you were in the boxing ring of life. And if you were to compare where you are today to where you were a few years ago, one would say you have definitely had experienced a transformation in your life. And I want you to share with us tonight where you were when you were at the lowest of the low in your life, when you were dealing with both alcohol and cocaine.
Okay, so where does one start? I think right off the bat, the first thing that I think about is when I think about like Ashley, like 3 to 5 years ago, is just so much self-hatred. And I hated myself, and I was so insecure that being in my own mind and my own skin was awful. And I think that's why I turned to drugs and alcohol so much, because it was a way for me to get out of my own mind, to numb out. And apparently when I was partying, I seemed to think I was funnier, prettier, cooler, connected with people. And so by the time, I don't have a really low bottom, but I do have many bottoms. And with some of those bottoms, I feel like I was just miserable. I would call my family 3 to 4 times a week, crying, making some sort of nonsense about something so silly. Like I would make mountains out of molehills, and I would take these things that were just little things in life. But because I was so emotionally unstable and I felt so broken, I would just, these little things would bother me so much. And I'd call my family all the time, just needy and unstable and emotional. And it just, I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. I just freaked out all the time about everything.
Yeah.
And that's why Monday to Friday, it would be, you know, white knuckle, get through the work week. And then the weekend would come and I would always end up partying. And it turned near the end when I was at my lowest, was it was no longer just a Friday night going out for some drinks, maybe dabbling in some drugs. It was, I couldn't drink. I couldn't have one drink without seeing, like, you know, your dealer's name in the bottom of your cup, automatically start craving drugs. And then that turned into a whole nother story. And then all of a sudden it was like, I started Friday night and Sunday afternoon, somehow I had still been high and drunk and I was supposed to go to work the next day. So I was missing work on Mondays, trying to be sick. You can only be sick so many Mondays without people wondering, right? So I was lonely. I didn't have any real connection with anyone. I didn't have any real friends. I had fair weather friends that wanted to party, and I didn't feel like I had a lot of connection with true friends. And that's because I chose to hang out with the wrong people. But yeah, it was, it got to the point where I just couldn't live my own life anymore, because being in my head, it was more of an emotional rock bottom where I just hated my life and the way I was living.
Okay. Well, I want to go back a little bit. I want to go back to maybe when you were in high school. What were those times like for you in high school and in college, as far as the drugs and alcohol were concerned?
So I was definitely a party girl. That's when I started. So I started drinking and partying in high school. So I had gone into high school very insecure, because we might get to this later, but I ended up twitching as a kid. And in hindsight, it's been brought up in therapy that it might have been trauma because of my mom passing. And so kids would make fun of me. You know, I couldn't control my own body, and I would do embarrassing twitches like stop and touch the ground or gulp in my throat or something. And so I was already insecure, and I go into high school, and high school's hard enough to feel like you're fitting in. So right off the bat, I went through all the different groups in high school. You know, you get the jocks, the valleys, the ravers, the nerds, you know, we can't use those terms anymore, but you know, I went through all the groups searching and just partying with all these different people. And it just steadily got worse. It started with, you know, getting high on weed. And then it was like partying every weekend with booze. And then it started being like, okay, I had a group of friends that were like, hey, you're going to throw up at this party, do this line of cocaine because it's going to sober you up so you can keep drinking and you're not going to be sick. And then that changed the whole game. From that point on, I was probably 16. I didn't even want the liquor. I didn't want the weed. I wanted to start drinking so that I could go and find cocaine after, because that's when I really shone.
I find that most people, when they graduate to more inducive drugs, that they start out smoking weed, and it's usually around junior high, high school. And as I said, and I said this last week, I applaud the young people who can make a decision that that is not for me. The ones that can say no, that I am not going to smoke weed, because I think that is an open gateway to other harsh drugs. Once you start smoking weed, then you can start with the cocaine, the heroin, whatever the other drugs are of choice. So basically, I guess you were the party girl in high school, huh?
Yeah, and it's funny, I started with the weed. I didn't even like weed. And apparently I don't like downers, apparently. Like, I never liked weed. It made me paranoid. And then drinking, I liked the beginning of it, but then because it's a downer, I didn't like the feeling. It turns out I'm an upper person, as we can tell, because I love caffeine and I liked cocaine. So so it's funny. I was smoking weed just because I didn't want to be in my own skin, and being high, even though uncomfortable, was better than being sober, Ashley.
Yes.
So, yeah.
All right. So would you say, and I like to ask people this question, why do you think you were smoking the weed, doing the cocaine, drinking? Were you looking for love in maybe all the wrong places or something? Was something missing out of your life that made you turn to those things?
100%. I mean, looking back now, I can easily say what I was missing was God. I always say that everyone has like a God-shaped hole in their heart. And when I found God, that was filled. But back then I didn't have God. And so because I think definitely every one of us craves connection. And I definitely think that because of my insecurity and wanting to have a connection with people and feeling like I belonged somewhere, I definitely was searching and grasping. And I still am friends with some of the people from my past, but my picker was definitely off. I would pick people to hang out with that I shouldn't have hung out with. But yeah, like I think I was searching for something. I didn't know it then, but now I can see I needed God, that love and that connection. And especially when I lost my mom, I've always had my dad and he's amazing and he fills me. But there is a different relationship with a daughter and a father than a daughter and a mother. And so I think there was part of that might have been missing for me, even though, I have an older sister who really took the role of like the mother figure, who she couldn't have done a better job. But I still think that might have played a part in me feeling like I was missing something.
Yeah. So when did the binge eating start?
So, I mean, I've always, looking back, used food as comfort. I've always, indulged in candy and McDonald's. And, I used to go to the store daily as a kid and, we'd go to the park and go to the store. And I loved food. And I think it turned into an actual problem probably in my early 20s, when I realized that, yes, I loved food. It was comfort for me. But it became, I started noticing it more the more I noticed I was having an issue with my drugs and alcohol. So then around the same time, I realized like I was definitely not just enjoying candy and junk food. I was really like, it was a crutch and I was overdoing it and it was making me ill. And I was acting as if it was some sort of medication for me.
Okay. So I see that you grew up in Whitby.
Yeah.
You moved to Toronto in your 20s, right? Now, did you know anyone when you moved to Toronto, or did you have friends in this area?
It was a hard, I didn't think about this when I first decided to move. I just got really excited because I got to this place in my life where I was like in my early 20s and I was like, what's the next step in life? Because that's what you do, especially when you don't have God. You're always grasping for that next something to fill you, to grow. And so
you're like, excitement in your life, right?
Yeah. And so I was like, well, I'm doing well. I'm working downtown. I'm gonna move out. And I was like, well, I can move out in Whitby, or I could move out and go to Toronto where I work and experience Toronto. And Ashley didn't think that like you don't have a single friend in Toronto and your family is in Whitby. And so when I moved there, it was a really, really hard transition. I struggled really bad because I didn't have friends there. I felt very, very alone. And that's definitely, I think, when my eating disorder definitely took more of a major role, because I was taking out my misery of being alone on food. And because I didn't really know anyone there was a lot of times I couldn't go out partying because I didn't have anyone. So that's, I think, when the eating crept up, and I didn't really make really strong friendships in Toronto until probably I started going to like AA, and that was probably like 4 years later, maybe 3 years later. So the first few years was miserable.
Okay, so I was going to ask you, so when you moved to Toronto, were you still drinking and using cocaine? Or you were?
I was kind of thinking, geographical cure kind of thing.
Yeah.
I was still going with this to Toronto. So I was right before I had gone to Toronto in Whitby, I really started noticing my issues. And because I lived at home, clearly, my parents were there. So even my dad and my stepmom, like I was pretty open, and they knew I was struggling. So when I went to Toronto, it didn't stop. It just it went with me there. But it was harder to be able to act out with the drugs and alcohol without knowing anyone in Toronto. And I would never drink alone because I'm social. So I would, when I didn't have friends or anyone just to party with, I would act out with food until I had people to hang out with.
Okay, so you're dealing with the alcohol, you're dealing with the cocaine, and you're dealing with the food at this time.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah.
Alone.
All
All alone.
alone. Like literally felt like I felt like I was in Toronto with no friends. And even though my family was like 40 minutes away, I felt like they were in a different country. Like that's what my mind made me feel like. I was completely alone in this city.
Yeah. So did you ever start therapy? Did you ever see a therapist or anything for this, or?
I did. So it was around, I think it was right before I did AA. I decided to try an addictions therapist. Because at that time, I don't think I was ready for AA. And that's when we kind of started talking and going into my past. And that's where it kind of came up about like the twitching and the insecurity and why I was even starting to act out with the drinking and the drugs. So that was my first step, was seeing a therapist. And then I led into AA.
Okay, so you saw the therapist first, and that's what I want to find out from you. When did you realize, after the therapist, because you said you went to the therapist and then you started AA, when did you realize that you really needed help? But before you answer that question, I just want to go to everyone out there who are watching, the viewers. If you know of someone who needs to hear this, please tag them so that they can join in and listen to Ashley share her story with us. And also, if you would share this Facebook Live video, and if you would click like, we definitely would appreciate it. But so Ashley, when did you actually realize that I'm out of control, the drugs, the alcohol, the binge eating is taking over, and what did you do about it?
I knew it was a problem before I left home. Blatantly, I knew I had a problem. What happened was, I think during that period between living at home and coming to Toronto and finally starting therapy and AA, there was a time where I did all of the my friends would be like, you don't have a problem, you're fine, like you just get hungover, you're just sketched out. And I would be like, oh, okay, I guess I don't have a problem. Meanwhile, I would get so sketched out, I'd be on the couch for 2 days, I couldn't get up. Meanwhile, all my friends the next day were out being normal human beings. And I was like, why does this affect me so much worse than everyone? I'm like, I have a problem. My friends would be like, no, you're fine, you're just like everyone else. So I used that to continue to try to drink and do all these different things, like I'm only going to drink beer and I'm not going to drink wine or hard liquor, or I'm only going to drink on Fridays, or I'm only going to drink with my boyfriend when I have one. And I try. So for a couple years, I just tested things out thinking, oh, something's got to work. Right. And when I went through all of the different experiments, I finally got to the place where I was like, okay, I had to get out of denial. It wasn't working. I couldn't trick myself any longer. So that's when I was like, I'm just going to take this chance. I'm going to try going to an AA meeting and let's see what happens. Even though I knew it wasn't just alcohol, it was just the first resource I thought of after therapy to get some help.
So you said a couple of things here. I want to talk about your friends who were telling you you were okay. They were doing the same things that you were doing. So they weren't okay either. So we have to be very careful of who we listen to, during those times, because individuals that are doing the same thing that you're doing, they would try to do exactly what happened to you, encourage you that there's nothing wrong with you. You're okay. What we're doing is fine. And it's not. You're actually sick. Yeah. That's exactly what's wrong, is you're sick and you have a disease. So what was your experience like with AA?
It was okay. So I'll tell you this. The very first time I went, I like crept in and I was really nervous, and we were sitting in this circle and, everyone was going one by one, hey, I'm Joe, I'm an alcoholic. Here's I'm going to talk about whatever. And it kept coming along to me. And before it got 2 people from me, I literally just got up and left. I just got so nervous. I bolted and I was like, I'm never going back there again. That was awful. I can't do it. Little did I know, 2 months later, I ended up going back to that same meeting because it was close to my house. And I was like, gosh, man, I'm not going to go to a far meeting just so I could avoid that place. I was like, no one's going to remember me. They probably did. Because when you're in the rooms for a while, you recognize everyone, the news. And you know that people,
Exactly.
yeah. So anyways, I went back and it was at first it was okay. I didn't mind it. I definitely rushed. The first person I saw when I heard I needed a sponsor, I was just
Mhm.
like, "Will you be my sponsor?" Not
Right.
even knowing this girl. So I didn't pick accordingly. I should have waited, because when you work with a
Mhm.
sponsor, you want it to be someone that you know you can vibe with and someone that you're willing to take recommendations from. So
Exactly.
yeah, there was a couple times I worked with people that just weren't for me and my recovery. But
Mhm.
also during AA is when, so AA brought me to God. So growing up, I didn't have God in my life, never went
Mhm.
to church. I did have these inklings. Okay. So this is really funny. I actually have a book here. I would get these inklings growing up, just to like, I had churches would be so mysterious. I didn't want to be in a church. We would have this Bible in our basement from when my mom passed away, a beautiful, huge, like gold lined Bible. And sometimes, like being like 12 or 14, I would just go and try and pick it up and read through it. But mind you, it was King James, so I didn't understand a word that it said. So I would try and read it. And then I was like, this is interesting. And there was something, it was like, I just kept feeling this little tap, like I wanted to know more about the Christian lifestyle and God. And so then I go to the store and I buy these.
Okay. Christianity for Dummies. I didn't even know they made that.
Bible for Dummies.
And the Bible for Dummies? Are you kidding? I didn't even know that those books were
That's,
available.
that's the kind of thing that I do. So, and
Is
so
that what
I've
they
had
give you for
this for
computer
so long.
programs?
Sorry?
Isn't that what they give you for computer programs when people don't know how to operate
There
a
is a
computer?
dummies book for everything, anything you can think of. And so I bought these when I was probably like 16, 17. So that you can see, even though I didn't find God until I was like 30, I can look back and I can see that like I was searching and he was tapping and I wasn't getting it, like it wasn't sticking yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
you know,
sorry.
the
I'm
word of
totally
God
off.
says, the word of God says that I would never leave nor forsake you. And what we don't realize is that even when we are in the world, that he's still with us.
Yeah.
He is still with us, no matter where we are and what we're doing. God is still with us. So that little inkling and tapping that you had, I'm so glad that you had that and you experienced that while you were in the AA group,
Yeah.
right?
So what happened was I found God in AA. So AA brought me to God, and then I wanted more of God. So I started going to church and I started CR, which I can tell you guys about. But in the rooms of AA, I really started to notice a lot of people would use their own addictions and problems to justify why they thought God didn't exist. And for
Mm,
me, on a newfound journey of building a relationship with God and hearing like 2/3 of a room bashing him, it was really uncomfortable for me. So I
right.
ended up leaving the rooms of AA, but I had also found Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christian based recovery program, very like AA. It's the 12 steps.
Mhm.
And I found it very loving and nurturing. So I've never looked back, and now I'm a CR leader. So CR all the way.
So you went to AA, you left AA, you found Celebrate Recovery while you were in AA. Please tell us, for those who don't know what Celebrate Recovery is, and sometimes viewers, they refer to Celebrate Recovery as CR. But before Ashley answers that question of what Celebrate Recovery is, I want you to please leave your comments. If you have any comments for Ashley, make sure you leave your comments, and we will make sure we answer your questions. I'm just trying to find us here. And sorry, just give me just a moment. Just trying to see if you have any questions. We will answer your questions. Sorry about that. So Ashley, could you please explain to us what Celebrate Recovery is?
Absolutely. So Celebrate Recovery, like I said, it's a faith-based 12-step recovery program. And so there's a lot of people that think that Celebrate Recovery is only for people with drug and alcohol addictions. But funny enough, only 1/3 of us in Celebrate Recovery struggle with drugs and alcohol. And there is a whole other host of things to to recover from. So we have people in there for codependency. That's a big one. Anyone that's been abused, sexual, physical, verbal, whatever it may be, pornography addiction, sexual addiction, anger. It could be anything that's causing you to live a normal functioning life. And especially one that's keeping you disconnected from God. Celebrate Recovery is there. And we go through the 12 steps. And it's great because unlike AA is we separate it into males and females for groups. So there's a little bit more comfort for people to discuss certain topics, but it is the most loving, nurturing program of freedom I have ever come across. And I've done a lot of things. I can get to that too. I've tried a lot of things in recovery. It wasn't just AA.
Okay, well, share with us some other things that you've tried.
Sure. Okay, so I went a couple times to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting. I've done AA. I've done CA, Cocaine Anonymous. I have done Sheena's Place, which is for eating disorders for women. I have done a very expensive outpatient treatment center. I took off work for a month for. Very expensive with my own money, and then relapsed, which was like kick in the behind. I've done smart recovery. I've done therapy. I've done all the things, and nothing ever took until I let go and I gave it to God. Nothing ever took. I could not do it on my own.
Praise the Lord. That's what I wanted you to get to. The point when you actually had an encounter with God and that your life changed. Let me just see for a moment here if we have anyone with a question. I don't see any questions yet, but I want to know what happened when you cried out to God. Because I know that you cried out to God and you asked God to come and step in your life, because at this point you have had years of drugs, alcohol, and binge eating. And I know after a while, the mind, the body, and the soul gets tired of that. And I think that's probably where you were when you called out to God. You were actually probably in a place of, I'm tired of going through this. Please share with us what happened when you called out to God.
Yeah, it's something I think about all the time. I had just been to a meeting and I was not doing well. I had newly relapsed and I was at a meeting one night. I can't remember. I think I might have picked up a desire chip, which is when you are within 24 hours, or it's if you're your first time at an AA meeting. And I got home and I was so fed up. I was fed up with my own life. I was fed up with the day-to-day of just the struggle. And I got into my room and I just had the urge to get on my knees right at the side of my bed. And I literally out loud was like, God, I need you. And I said, I don't know if you exist. I think you do, but I need you. And all of a sudden, and I can't ever forget this, I just literally felt like this hug, this warmth, this supernatural warmth and comfort, and I just started bawling. And I don't mean like a boo-hoo. I mean like it was not in my control. I was flooding my eyes. I could not control them. I was just Niagara Falls letting it out, and it was bittersweet, because at that moment I was like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like I always believed in God as like this paper is a piece of paper, not a relationship. And at that moment, God was literally with me, and I was like, I am not as alone as I think I am. And it was, oh my gosh, like I think about it and I just get tingly, because it was so supernatural. And that is the moment that changed my life in becoming a believer.
So what happened after that?
So I didn't know what to do at that point. I was like, oh, okay, like sweet, like me and God, we're tight. Like he exists. This is a thing. And I didn't know what to do. And so I was like, I want more, God. I want to know you. I want to be close to you. And there's a woman actually that I work with, and she is quite a believer. She's a very strong believer. And so she had known a little bit about my struggle over the years. I confided in her. She's a lot older, and I knew that I could trust her. And so one day I went to work, and I just went up to her one day, and I said her name, and I said, can you maybe let me know of a church I might be interested in? And her eyes lit up and she was like, oh my heavens, because she was like, I was going to tell you today that you might want to try. And I was like, are you kidding? Like, that is not a coincidence. That is a God moment, like that right there. And on the same day, at the same time, we were like coming together to talk about me having a relationship with God. And so she gave me the name of a church, which is Stone Church, and told me to call the pastor and, just meet him. And so I called him and we had a quick conversation, and he was like, oh, I would love for you to come in. And I was like, okay, I'm going to come, but I'm going to wait for my friend because I'm nervous in the beginning of things. And he's like, well, if you can be brave, we're having a baptismal service this Sunday, and it would be nice if you could come see it. And so my coworker couldn't come. So I was like, I mustered up the courage to go that day. And I sat in the front row, not thinking. And the youth pastor at the time had been like, oh, do we have anyone that's new here at Stone? And of course, I'm in the front row. And I'm like, there was no way I was getting out without anyone seeing me. I was like, oh my gosh, Ashley, like, how could you sit here? But anyways, I outed myself. And then after I talked to a couple of the people there, and I met the pastor in person. But that baptism, watching that, looking up, because we look up for it, it's like on a platform, I melted, and I was like, that's going to be me one day. Just when I saw that person giving themselves to God, like, I was like, that's going to be me. And 2 months later, on May 28th, 2017, this girl was baptized.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Isn't it amazing how when we call out to God, because God knows our heart, and God knows when we are fed up, when I call it sick and tired of being sick and tired, because when I was in my drug days, I just became sick and tired of being sick and tired. And that's when I just said, Lord, I need to surrender to you. But it is amazing how you said you called out to God. You felt him. You felt his presence, and he's there. And he's always there with us. And that's what, a lot of people forget. No matter what we're going through, God is always with us. His word says, I will never leave and forsake you. But I thank God that you cried out to him. You called out to him. He connected you with your coworker who invited you to church. Now you're at Stone Church. Please tell us the next thing that happened. Okay, you've been baptized. You're there at the church because people want to hear about this relapse. You're the Queen of Relapse. So you're in Celebrate Recovery, correct? And you're at Stone Church. You've been baptized. Give us the rest of your story here.
So when I started going to Stone, right after I was baptized and everything, I had started CR at the church, which was I think it's another God moment. As soon as I start going to Stone, CR happens. And I'm just like, this couldn't be better timing. And so, yes, I had this new relationship with God. And yes, but I guess I should say in the beginning, it was so new to me. And I was still struggling. I was very much struggling with flesh and spirit. I now had Holy Spirit in me, but I had just lived in the world for 30 years. And I had a lot of dirt on me. And I was still getting sucked in. So, I was missing church on Sundays, and I would make the excuse that I didn't feel well because Friday night would come. And I didn't, just because I had been baptized and just found the Lord, I was still living my old lifestyle, and then maybe adding church in for a bit on Sundays and CR, which was, it wasn't getting into my brain yet. Well, it was getting into my heart, I should say. And so I would be going out on a Friday, but it's funny, by that point, when I was relapsing and going out, I couldn't enjoy myself anymore. I would still relapse because from Monday to Thursday, I'd just be like, oh my gosh, I got to get out of this skin and this brain. Like, I was still tormented. And I would go out on a Friday. And at this point, I actually had some friends, and I mean, all my friends, they could go out and some of these friends were normal drinkers, but I still wasn't. My habitual, drinking, it wasn't going to change because I was hanging out with friends who knew how to drink socially and responsibly. So I would still go out and I would still get plastered, and like I would leave my healthier friends, and I would leave and go find some drug friends to hang out with and try and find bad things, to finish. I'd start with the good people, finish with the bad people. And then I would miss church on Sundays, and I would feel very shameful. And I have this sponsor who's also like a mentor now in CR. And, you know, I would have to be like, I relapsed. And it was like, sometimes it was like, it got to a point where there was like a couple weeks in a row, and she'd be like, I'm praying for you. And I just wasn't getting it. And I was still fighting my flesh, and I was still trying to live a worldly life, and still trying to date like I was in the world, and all of that. And, you know, I want
to ask you about that. So, so you're still in church. You're going to the church.
Yeah.
You're part of CR, and the person in CR who's at the church, I like the fact that you said you were able to let her know that you relapsed, and her response was, I'm praying for you. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because we can become very judgmental of individuals who are struggling. So I want to make that point, that we cannot become judgmental of those who are trying to recover. Also, relapse is actually a part of recovery. Most people, I'm not saying everyone, but most people, when they are in the position of transitioning their life from that life of darkness into the light, it is not uncommon for them to have a relapse. So we have to recognize that too, because there are some people, we have some viewers on who have never experienced with drugs, or never have been in a predicament where they had an addictive behavior to drugs, and they don't understand when an abuser, you know, is on the right road, they're going to AA, or they're going to CR, they're getting the help, they're going to church, and then they fall off. Because once you relapse, and then they start talking about you, they start becoming judgmental. But that's not what you need. You need to know that you're loved, just like the lady. And I wanted to bring that point up. We have to pray for one another. And that's even with the Christians in church. When some of us, you see us brothers and sisters fall into sin that you know that we should not be doing, we know that we should not be doing, instead of backbiting and talking about them, you should be praying for them. You let them know, I know you're struggling with whatever your issue is, because we all have something that we deal with. We all have an issue that we struggle with. Yours may be drugs, but the next person's may be fornication, you know, pornography or something like that. So we all deal with different things, and we have to be there and be available for one another. So that's what I just wanted to bring that point up of, that there's hurt people in church. And also, yes, that's what I wanted to bring up. You were going to church, you're part of CR. You were in church on Sundays, but you're in church and you were hurting. In church and you were hurting. And that's why it's so important for us to have the spirit of discernment. And I remember back in November, I shared my story in church, what God was bringing me through and how he was bringing forth Burning Love Outreach. And a gentleman after church came to me, talking to me about his friend who was addicted to drugs. But the spirit of discernment let me know that he was dealing with drugs. So I just want people to know that sometimes, even though we're in church, we're going to church, we're trying to do the right thing, sometimes people are still struggling. But you can continue to tell us what happened while you were, and how you were relapsing.
Yeah, I mean, and also because I have relapsed so much, I feel like God has given me so much compassion and mercy for people who have struggled like I had, because I wasn't one of those ones that just had a coming to Jesus moment and was like, I never went and partied again. I kept relapsing, and I would relapse over anything. I would relapse because I wanted to celebrate something. I would relapse because I was bored and lonely on a Friday night. I would relapse because I had a date and I didn't know how to go sober, because I would always go out with guys and drink, because you take the edge off. God forbid I had a social event like a wedding or a work event. Of course, it was a crutch for social events. You know, one of the worst relapses that it kind of gets to me a little bit today, because I was so caught off guard after I went to that treatment center that I had spent a lot of my money on. See, there's some bitterness there, I think. I'd gone to go meet one of the girls that was in the program with me, and she lived out of town. So I took the train and the bus, and I went a couple hours away to see her. And I was really excited. We were recovery buddies. Well, she picks me up in her car and she's drunk. So I get there a couple hours away from home to this person who didn't tell me that she was drinking. And so I'm spending the night there. So of course, what do? I'm going to relapse because she's drinking blatantly right in front of me. At first she was trying to hide it, but I could smell it on her breath. And I relapsed because I'm like, oh, we're going to your next door neighbor's party. You're drunk. I might as well get drunk too now, because I'm not going to go sober to a party where I don't know anybody. So it's stuff like that where, just any time that I was I was not okay with being uncomfortable in any situation where if booze was going to be the answer to let me take the edge off, I was going to do it. And that was, as I just said, a whole lot. So I was really struggling. But like I said, I felt convicted a lot because of it, because I knew I shouldn't have been doing it. I knew I'd been doing all of these things to try and get help. And I was currently in CR and I had my sponsor, and and then I got to the point where, I had enough. And the one thing I will say is, yes, I relapsed a ton. And it took me years of relapsing to finally get where I am today. But if I can give anyone here some hope that's listening, just get back up every time. I can tell you, I probably relapsed. I could say I relapsed 50 times, but I got up every single time. I never left and said, screw this, I'm going back out. I'm just going to go straight out and party. I never did that. I'd be sober for a couple of weeks, I'd party, get up, be sober for a couple of weeks, party, get up, sober for a couple of months, party, get up. I got up every single time. If I fell down 7, I got up 8. And that's what I would say to people. If you're struggling, it's okay to struggle, but you have to realize, where is your mind? Like, I wanted to be sober. I sucked at being sober for a while, but I wanted to be sober. So I never quit. And it got to a point where I just kept doing it and asking Jesus to carry me when I was struggling. And it was like, all of a sudden I was 3 months sober, and that I could never get to 3 months. And then all of a sudden I was 5 months sober. And then all of a sudden I was 9 months sober in a year. And now I'm almost 2 years sober. And it just happened. And I can promise you, it wasn't my doing. It had nothing to do with my own strength. I just got up every time and said, Jesus, please take the wheel, help me. I can't do this. I need you to do it. And it just kind of happened. And all of a sudden, I wasn't relapsing anymore. And I was going to my meetings, and I was serving and getting out of my own head and doing things for others. And I was going to church, and I was keeping connected with the healthy people in my church family and my recovery family. And that's, along with Jesus, all of that stuff, my new surroundings is what's got me here today. So there is hope, but I needed to change. I needed to get rid of most of my friends. I couldn't do it. I honestly, sorry, go on.
I was going to ask you that question. What did you have to change in your life? And a lot of times, one of the main things that we have to change are the people that we associate with. Can you talk to us about that, your friends?
Yeah, I mean, and I had some really fun, I had a couple groups of friends, different groups of friends that were so fun, and we made the coolest memories, but they were all party memories, and they were great people, and I wish them well to this day. But they could party, and they could do things, and they could live a life and function with partying, and I couldn't. So I needed to leave, and I needed to exit the situation. And because no matter what, when I saw them, all of a sudden old Ashley was right back in there, and I could not drink around them. It had nothing to do with them. They weren't bad people or anything, but I could not be sober around them because it was just habitual, and I liked to party with them because I thought it was so fun. So I just had to change my groups of friends to healthier friends. So a lot of my friends now are through church and recovery, and the ones that aren't are they don't drink a lot. They support my sobriety. But that one of the things, the biggest thing, was the people I surrounded myself with. The
Yes.
second thing, like I just said, I had to get out of my head and do things for other people. I had
Right.
to serve. So whether you're doing that at a meeting or doing something for others through work or a church, if you go to church and being part of a ministry, whatever it may be, going and helping out at an old folks home, just be helping others and getting out of your own head. That was one thing. Discipline. I needed a normal routine. I needed to be at church every Sunday. I needed to be at CR every Wednesday. I needed to have that discipline, especially when I knew I was weak. So like
Yes.
on Fridays or Saturdays, I would try and plan things or go home when I knew that it was the witching hour. And if I was at home twiddling my thumbs on a Friday night, there was a huge chance someone was going to text me and be like, you want to go to the bar? And I would have been like, yes. Like sometimes it was just, it wasn't even a struggle. I would just do it because I didn't like to be uncomfortable. So I had to change a lot.
Did you
Sorry?
ever reach out to your sponsor during those times? Your CR sponsor? And also we have a question. Somebody asked, what is CR? So if you could tell them again, if you
Yeah.
reached
So
out to your CR sponsor.
yeah, so I was never the one that would reach out before. I was never the one to be like, oh, I think I'm gonna pick up a bottle of wine. Never. I was always after, boo-hoo, I relapsed. And a lot of us are like that because we don't want to be stopped when by the time we're going to buy the bottle or the drug, we've already relapsed. So I
Right.
would have had to contact her like a day or two earlier than that to really have been stopped. But I would always message her after and let her know. And for whoever was asking what CR is, it's Celebrate Recovery. And it is a Christian-based 12-step recovery program. And it is to help anyone find freedom from struggles such as drugs, alcohol, codependency, gambling, financial issues, lust, pornography, sexual abuse, anything that's keeping you stuck in a habit that you cannot stop. So that's what CR is.
Yes. So please, if someone that is watching wanted to get in touch with CR, how would that happen for them?
Absolutely. So number one, you could always get in touch with me. You could find me on Instagram at Living Healthy with Ash, hashtag Living Healthy with Ash, and I can give you information. You can also go to Celebrate Recovery Canada. We have a website, and all of the Canadian meetings are on there. We do have one here in Toronto, but we have a lot in the GTA as well. Or you can actually that's probably the two best ways. So Celebrate Recovery Canada website, or just get in touch with me.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to share information.
Okay, so please, everyone that's out there listening, all of our viewers, again, if you know someone that would benefit from hearing Ashley's story, please tag them so that they can watch this video, because it has been definitely enlightening to us. And Ashley, if you had to give any of our viewers any advice, if they are dealing with drug abuse and addiction right now, what would your advice be to them?
I think right back to it that I was saying before is just never giving up. Never, if you're struggling and you know you need to stop, whatever your drug of choice is, whatever your sinful habit may be, you can find what works for you. You know, there are lots of resources out there, whether it is, you know, a nonprofit recovery program or a therapist, or it could be mental health. It could be whatever it is. Never give up. You will stumble and you will fall, but I can promise you God is always going to be there to pick you up every time. And it's like that poem Footprints, where it's, you know, when there was the one set of footprints in the sand because the man thought God wasn't with him, but God said, it's because I was carrying you. That's why there was only one set of footprints. And that, like, oh my gosh, it's going to like make me tear up. God is there for us and that's why they have that the saying, let go and let God, because we aren't meant to do this on our own. So don't try and do it in your own strength. just release it, and God will take care of it. But just keep trying, never lose hope. You know, I used to go to bed every night and listen to recovery stories, whether it was AA or Celebrate Recovery. And I would just find podcasts and I would just listen, because you just hear people's stories of hope, where they were and then where they are now. And it was really for hard times. I needed to keep doing that every night to go to bed to that, because I needed that hope when I didn't have it for myself. But yeah, I honestly just never give up, and God is with you, and have a community. And if you can, get out of your head and help someone else, because sometimes we're selfish. Everything is about us. In recovery, that's why we have problems like this, is because everything is me, 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 me. Well, when you start doing things for other people, your mind changes and you think about other people and you want to help other people and see other people do well. And you stop thinking about you less. And then you start realizing that all of a sudden you're not so wrapped up and consumed by those little things that aren't important, that you used to torment yourself about, because you get a bigger picture of what the world is really about.
Okay. And also, if you had any last words for family and friends, because like I said, we have people watching who have never been addicted to drugs, who can't even relate to the feeling of what it's like. They've been hurt probably by the drug user. And would you have any words of encouragement for family and friends tonight who are dealing with a loved one who's suffering from drug abuse and addiction?
I do. It's hard. There's two sides of it. There's the encouragement where, like, don't give up on them. If they're trying and they're struggling, it's showing that they want it, but you know, it's really difficult. Recovery is not easy. And just be there for them, continue to stick by them. But on the flip side, if I'm going to be real, you know, I've experienced where sometimes as a family, you want to fix that person. You want to change them. You want to be like, I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to fix you. You can't fix that person. All you can do is love them. You can pray for them. But sometimes people aren't yet ready for the help that you're offering. So if you are a family member and you have someone in your family struggling, and you're just at your wit's end because you're like, I'm giving them all these, you know, this advice, and they're not doing it and they're not trying. It's so hard. And I personally know how you would feel. You can pray for them. You can be there for them. But sometimes you have to just stick by and wait for them to be ready, because they have to do it on their own. And that's the hardest part. That's really the hardest part. But you can even find communities, like there's communities for families of people who have addictions, and there's support networks there as well if you need to talk to anyone.
Well, thank you so much. This has definitely been a great conversation. I love your energy. I love how enthusiastic you are. And you said something earlier, and I just want to reiterate on that. In the book of Jeremiah 33:3, it says, call unto me and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things. And you called unto God and he came in and he's showing you great and mighty things. And I feel the same way in my story. That exact same thing happens. And I want anyone out there who is listening to be encouraged and know that God is always with you. He will never leave nor forsake you. And whenever you're going through your trials and tribulations, believe me, God is right there with you. And some people may say, well, you know, why do you have people on talking about their issues? It's because there are many individuals who are suffering from and being tormented by drug abuse and addiction. And we want them to know that there is hope. We want to give them encouragement. And I shared something with Ashley today, right before I left work. I ran across this thing that says that we recover loudly so others don't have to suffer in silence. This is why we're telling our story. I tell my story. Ashley is telling her story. My guest last week told his story. And we're looking for individuals who are willing to be open and transparent and let others know that there is hope, that they were down and out once, and now their life has been transformed. Ashley, we are so happy to have you on with us tonight, to share your story with us, and for being open. And I pray that someone will be blessed by this video tonight. And as I said, my viewers, please tag someone in this video. They can always go back and watch it. It's also on a webinar. And we just thank God for you, our supporters, Burning Love Outreach. We are here. You can find us on our website at burningloveoutreach.org. And if you enjoyed tonight's conversation, we will have many more coming your way. But we'd like for you to go and check out our website. We have a place there where you can submit your prayers to us. If you are in need of prayer, we will pray for you, with you. If you have a testimony, we'd like for you to leave your testimony there. And also, we are asking for you to please support this ministry. We're a nonprofit ministry. We are asking you to please consider partnering with us. You can make a one-time donation, or you can choose to be a monthly donor. We have people who are monthly donors. So we just want to say thank you to everyone who supported us. Thank you, Ashley. Also, on Thursday, September 3rd, that's in 2 weeks, we will have life coach, recovery coach, Sylvia Shipman, Sylvia Shipman. She will be with us. She will be bringing inspiration for recovery to us. She will impart helpful nuggets to those who are struggling with drug abuse and addiction. And she will also give information to family and friends, how to assist their loved ones and how to support them in their recovery process. So again, as I said, please check out our website at burningloveoutreach.org. Again, Ashley, we thank you for being with us. If you have any last words you'd like to say, this is your opportunity.
I actually don't. It caught me off guard. Just thanks for everyone watching, and I hope that someone got something out of this, because I just want to give God all the glory for where I am today. But I thank everyone who is supporting me by watching.
Thank you all for supporting us. We are about to end this conversation for tonight, but we want to encourage you, don't give in, don't give out, and don't give up. There is always help for you. And if you need to reach out to Burning Love Outreach, please reach out to us, because we want to help you deal with your recovery. We want to help you to live a life of joy, peace, and positivity through a relationship with God. So everyone, have a wonderful evening. God bless you all. And please don't forget to join us on Thursday, September 3rd. That's in 2 weeks, when we have life coach, recovery coach, and Apostle Sylvia Shipman will be joining us on that evening. Thank you all.